It's a Friday evening in Brussels. Inside a dimly lit restaurant, a policymaker, a business leader, and a researcher are having a conversation. They aren't debating whether Europe's economy is in trouble. That part is settled. What they're sharing is a quiet anxiety over how fast it's slipping. In the year 2000, Europe produced 23% of the entire global economy. This chart shows the GDP of the EU, the US, and China since 2002. Look at the top line, which measures GDP at constant prices. In 2002, the European economy was slightly larger than America's. By 2023, a 30% gap had opened up between them. This divergence reflects a significant gap in productivity. While the US economy generated more output per hour worked, the European engine slowed. The people sitting around that table in Brussels know all this data. Their real fear is the tempo. The widening distance between those lines proves that Europe is diagnosing its own decline, but reacting too slowly to stop it. In September 2024, Mario Draghi delivered a comprehensive playbook to halt this economic slide. It outlined the investments and policy shifts required to fix the machine. One full year after publication, only 11% of those recommendations have been fully implemented. The rest remain trapped in negotiations or untouched. That sliver of progress suggests the continent is suffering from institutional gridlock. With the blueprint in hand but the execution failing, Europe is now moving toward one of three possible futures. The time for producing new reports has ended. The actions taken in the next few legislative cycles will determine the physical and economic reality of the continent by 2050. The first path, Scenario 1, occurs if Europe maintains its current pace of hesitation. If implementation remains sluggish, the GDP gap with the United States expands to 35% by 2030. By 2050, Europe's share of world GDP shrinks to just 14%. In this future, Europe remains a wealthy theme park of culture and heritage, but its industrial production has vanished. It sets rules for the global market, but no longer builds the technology itself. Europe keeps its standard of living, but loses its global agency, becoming a comfortable museum reliant on foreign powers for technology and security. Scenario 2 involves stagnation. This path follows if Europe commits to only partial reforms and half measures. The continent's industries survive, but they operate as diminished versions of their former selves. Europe settles into the role of a comfortable middle power. Domestically, the standard of living completely flatlines. The generation born today finds their economic opportunities stopped at the same level as their parents. Stagnation is difficult to fight because it slowly becomes an accepted, irreversible habit, keeping Europe trapped below its potential. The third path is Scenario 3, resurgence. This requires a sudden, unifying crisis, similar to the 2020 pandemic response, that forces a massive collective rally. If that political energy is used to stabilize the economy, Europe secures an 18% share of the global economy by 2050. This timeline pairs industrial growth with social cohesion and long-term environmental sustainability. Europe manages its own trajectory to remain a prosperous, equitable place to live. Reaching that resurgent scenario depends on transforming the momentum from a crisis into immediate policy action. Europe has 5 control mechanisms it can use right now to change its 2050 trajectory. The first is governance. As long as individual states hold veto power over economic policy, the continent will remain slow. Moving toward qualified majority voting is necessary for speed. The second is investment. Competing with the industrial policies of the United States and China requires committing hundreds of billions in joint funding. The third and fourth levers are energy and regulation. Europe must build affordable power grids while adopting a regulatory model that encourages innovation rather than just managing risks. And the fifth is pride, a rediscovery of the belief in the European project itself. These 5 levers are the tools available to move Europe off the path of decline and onto the path of resurgence. Mario Draghi warned the European Parliament that the continent's ultimate risk is the failure to choose any direction at all. Historically, this continent has survived profound crises by choosing to rebuild and rise again. Europe has the capital and the intellect to rise again, provided it finds the courage to make that decision today.